Let's get right into it. Number 10. Miracle in the Andes. On October 13, 1972, a plane carrying 45 people, mostly young rugby players, crashed high in the Andes Mountains. The impact was so violent that the plane split in half, sending passengers and seats flying through the air. When the snow settled, only 27 people were still alive. They were stranded at 11,500 feet, where the temperature dropped to minus 30 degrees at night. The search for them was called off after just 10 days because no one thought anyone could survive that long in those conditions. They had no food, no proper clothing, and their only shelter was the broken fuselage of the plane. After their tiny food supply ran out, they faced an impossible choice: starve to death or eat the flesh of their dead friends who were preserved in the snow. They held a vote on it. The survivors later said they thought of it as receiving communion. Their friends' bodies were keeping them alive. After 2 months of waiting for rescue, 2 of the survivors, Nando Parado and Roberto Canessa, decided to take action. They hiked for 10 days through some of the most brutal mountain terrain on Earth. They climbed a 15,000-foot peak with no climbing gear, just wearing rugby cleats. When they finally found help, they'd walked 38 miles through the mountains. Thanks to their trek, the remaining 14 survivors were rescued after spending 72 days in the Andes. Number 9. The man the bear couldn't kill. It's 1823, and Hugh Glass is scouting for game in the wilderness of South Dakota when he stumbles upon a mother grizzly and her cubs. The bear attacks Glass, turning him into human origami. She crushes his leg, rips open his back, punctures his throat, and uses him as a chew toy. They can see his exposed ribs through the wounds in his back. His scalp is hanging off his head like a loose toupee. The expedition leader leaves 2 men behind to wait for Glass to die and give him a proper burial. But these men get scared of nearby Native American tribes and bail. They take Glass's rifle, knife, and survival gear, leaving him completely defenseless. Glass wakes up, realizes he's been abandoned, and decides to crawl 200 miles to the nearest settlement. With a broken leg, exposed ribs, and half dead, he starts dragging himself through the wilderness. To prevent infection, he lies on rotting logs so maggots would eat his dead flesh. This continues for 6 weeks. 6 weeks of crawling through the wilderness, eating whatever he could find, and somehow staying alive. When he finally makes it to civilization, he immediately starts planning his revenge on the guys who abandoned him. Number 8. Between a rock and a hard place. Aaron Ralston was hiking alone in a remote canyon in 2003 when an 800-pound boulder shifted. It pinned his right arm against the canyon wall. For the first 24 hours, Aaron tried everything to get free. He chipped away at the rock with his pocket knife. He tried to rig up a pulley system with his climbing gear. Nothing worked. By day 3, he was running out of water. He started drinking his own urine to stay alive. He carved his name, date of birth, and assumed date of death into the canyon wall. He even recorded goodbye messages to his family on his video camera. Then he had a vision of a little boy running towards him. The boy was his future son. And in that moment, Aaron knew what he had to do. Using the dull blade of his cheap multi-tool, he began cutting into his own arm. The knife was so blunt it couldn't even cut through his skin properly, so he had to break his arm first by leveraging it against the boulder. For the next hour, he performed surgery on himself. No anesthesia, no proper medical tools. He cut through skin, muscle, and tendons. He had to use pliers to break through the nerves. After freeing himself, he rappelled down a 65-foot cliff, then hiked 6 miles through the desert while bleeding, severely dehydrated, and missing part of his right arm. A helicopter crew rescued him just hours before he would have died. Number 7. The man who survived at the bottom of the sea. Harrison O'Keefe woke up in complete darkness, cold water up to his chest, trapped in an air bubble at the bottom of the ocean. He was a cook on the tugboat Jascon 4 when a freak wave hit the boat. The ship capsized so fast that most of the crew didn't even have time to react. Harrison was in the bathroom when the boat flipped and sank 100 feet to the ocean floor. He found himself trapped in a tiny air pocket. The freezing water was burning his skin with salt. Through the metal walls, he could hear fish eating the bodies of his dead crewmates. He spent 60 hours in that dark bubble. He stayed alive by drinking Coca-Cola that was floating around. The pressure at that depth should have killed him. The cold should have killed him. The lack of oxygen should have killed him. When rescue divers finally found him, they thought they were recovering another body. A hand reached out and grabbed them. Harrison spent another 60 hours in a decompression chamber to prevent his body from exploding from the pressure change. The air pocket that saved him was so small that if the boat had tilted just a few more inches, it would have disappeared completely. Number 6. The unluckiest, luckiest man in history. Tsutomu Yamaguchi survived not one, but two nuclear bombs. On August 6, 1945, Yamaguchi was in Hiroshima on a business trip. He was walking to work when he saw a bomber plane overhead. He looked up as it released a dark object. Before he could even process what it was, there was a flash brighter than 1,000 suns. The blast threw him into a potato field and burned the left side of his body. His eardrums were ruptured, and he was temporarily blinded. The next day, despite his injuries, he managed to catch a train back to his hometown. His hometown was Nagasaki. When he got to work on August 9th, he was telling his boss about the horrible weapon he'd seen in Hiroshima. His boss didn't believe such a weapon could exist. Mid-conversation, Yamaguchi saw another familiar flash through the window. It was the second atomic bomb. And once again, he survived. Despite being hit with enough radiation to kill most people twice over, Yamaguchi lived to be 93 years old. The Japanese government didn't officially recognize him as a double bomb survivor until 2009. He died just a year later. Number 5. The Human Lightning Rod. Roy Sullivan, a park ranger, was struck by lightning 7 times and lived through every single strike. His first hit came in 1942 while hiding in a fire tower without a lightning rod. The bolt hit the tower, set it ablaze, and burned his legs. In 1969, lightning struck through his truck's open window while driving. The bolt singed off his eyebrows and knocked him unconscious. 1972, lightning found him inside a ranger station and set his hair on fire. He had to extinguish his burning hair with a wet towel. 1973, Roy saw the lightning bolt actually following him. He tried outrunning it in his truck, but the lightning still found its target. The lightning struck him again in 1970, 1976, and 1977. People started avoiding him during storms, believing he was a lightning magnet. He began carrying a can of water everywhere, preparing for his hair to catch fire again. After surviving nature's most powerful force 7 times, Roy Sullivan died in 1983, not from lightning, but from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Number 4. The Girl Who Fell from the Sky. Imagine you're on a plane flying over the Amazon rainforest. Lightning strikes the plane. The cabin fills with smoke, and the plane starts breaking apart mid-air. You're falling from 10,000 feet, strapped to your seat, plummeting towards the dense jungle below. This actually happened to 17-year-old Julianne Kopka on Christmas Eve 1971. The plane she was on with her mother got hit by lightning and broke apart in the sky. All 92 people on board died except for Julianne. She fell 2 miles through the sky, still buckled to her seat. The seat, acting like a makeshift parachute, and the dense rainforest canopy slowed her fall enough to keep her alive. When she woke up the next morning, she was still strapped to her seat on the jungle floor. She had a broken collarbone, a deep cut on her arm, and a swollen eye. For the next 11 days, she trekked through the Amazon. She remembered one crucial tip her father, a zoologist, taught her. If you find water, follow it downstream. She walked through the jungle, following streams, while dealing with infected wounds and maggots under her skin. After 11 days, she found a boat and some fuel. She poured the fuel on her wounds to kill the maggots, just like she'd seen her father do for their dog years before. Local lumbermen found her and took her to safety. Number 3. The Man with a Hole in His Head. Picture yourself at work, just doing your normal job. For Phineas Gage, that meant working on a railroad in 1848, tamping explosives into holes with a 3-foot iron rod. On September 13th, a spark hit the explosive powder too early, and that iron rod shot straight through Phineas's head like a bullet. It went in under his left cheekbone and came out the top of his skull. This rod was 3 feet long and weighed as much as a bowling ball. The force was so strong that the rod landed 80 feet away, covered in blood and brain matter. But Phineas didn't die. He was conscious and could talk. He got up and walked to a cart that took him to the doctor. When the doctor arrived, Phineas said, "Here's business enough for you." He lived for another 12 years, but while his body survived, the Phineas that his friends and family knew didn't. That iron rod destroyed his frontal lobe, the part of your brain that controls your personality. The once friendly, responsible Phineas became angry, impulsive, and couldn't keep a job. His friends said he was no longer Gage. Number 2. The flight attendant who survived a 33,000-foot fall. In 1972, flight attendant Vesna Vulovic was working at 33,000 feet when her plane exploded. The plane broke apart, and she started falling through the freezing sky with no parachute. During the fall, she was pinned to a food cart in a section of the plane. This piece of the plane, with her trapped inside, landed in deep snow on a mountain slope. The angle of the slope, combined with the snow and the trees, helped slow down her descent. The impact broke almost everything in her body. She had a skull fracture, broken vertebrae, shattered pelvis, broken ribs, and both legs completely destroyed. She was in a coma for 27 days. But Vesna wasn't done surprising people. Not only did she wake up, but she also eventually learned to walk again. After recovering, she even wanted to go back to flying. The airline gave her a desk job instead. Her survival came down to a few key factors. Her blood pressure was so low during the fall that her blood vessels didn't burst on impact. Being unconscious meant her muscles were relaxed, which helped her body absorb the shock better. It's like being a drunk person falling downstairs. Being limp is better than being tense. Number 1. The 33 trapped below. 33 Chilean miners were trapped half a mile underground when their mine collapsed in 2010. 700,000 tons of rock came down on them, equivalent to 2 Empire State Buildings. They escaped to a shelter meant for 30 people for 48 hours. Instead, 33 people stayed there for 69 days. Their food situation was brutal. 2 days of emergency rations had to last over 2 months. Each miner survived on 2 spoonfuls of tuna, a sip of milk, and a small cookie every 48 hours. The mine was 85 degrees with 90% humidity. Their bodies were being eaten alive by fungus. Some lost up to 40 pounds. After 17 days of the world not knowing if they were alive, a drill finally reached them. They sent back a note. All 33 of us are fine in the shelter. The rescue was so complex that NASA had to help design a special capsule. Each miner had to squeeze through a narrow shaft barely bigger than their body for 15 minutes. If anyone panicked, there would be no way to help them. All 33 miners survived 69 days in conditions that should have killed them. Today, many can't even use elevators without having panic attacks, but they're alive. Something nobody expected after that initial collapse. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.